Yo, this is Kabusha with a new series on Rule the Waves. It's a somewhat obscure naval fleet game that I came across recently that's really tickled my fancy. It's a little hard to jump straight into, but the basic gist of it is you deal with a financial portion of the game where you deal with your ship design, prioritizing what you're building at any one time, and or where your fleets are actively deployed on the grand strategy map. And then you've kind of got a micro level where each turn you have random chances of encounters with your fleet. You can't really decide, oh, I just want all my battleships to fight every single turn. It doesn't work that way. So you kind of have a mixed armada to fend off enemy attacks or perform attacks of your own. So there's some strategy in how you design and build stuff and kind of go through it. So we'll go ahead and start a new game and kind of get going. I really enjoy playing Austria, Hungary. They are one of these smaller nations, especially if you play with a historical level budget. We start out with 10 million is our range. If you use a game level budget, it's doubled to 20, which is pretty huge. You start out Mediterranean, and that's all you have to worry about. You just have to worry about this sea. Other nations have other areas that they have to start with and protect, but they get more resources, the trade-off. Italy's a lot of fun too. They'll actually probably be who I beat up quite a bit in the early game. You've also got Russia, Germany, Britain, France. Britain is terrifying. You see their game level budget and historical budget are both 40,000. They have the largest fleets in the game because they have the most area to protect. Yeah, they also have the biggest ships at the start. I think right alongside France. Yes, France also gets the 16s. France, we see also, they're not a bad one to play either. Mid-sized, kind of alongside Germany for that mid-sized range. You could play as the United States as an option, even Japan, or build your own custom nations. There's a lot of different options. At least for me, I really enjoy Austria. It says oil, no. What it is it's a lie. You do have oil. There are 4 nations that start out with oil. You can't use it initially, but when you get the tech, you can. Austria, Hungary, Russia, the United States, and I think it might be France is the 4th. But there's 4 that do actually start with oil. It's a thing. Research advantage, torpedo technology. Destroyers are going to be very powerful for us. And triple turrets is quite nice. Cautious is their nature, which means they really do not like losing big capital ships. You're going to get slapped pretty hard if you're losing all your ships all the time. You also start out with a smaller dock and only 11-inch guns, where somebody like Britain starts out with 13s. They're pretty terrible 13s. Their 12-inchers are actually decent. Same thing with everybody else. Yeah, but we start out with a mediocre 11 or a decent 10-inch. So you're always going to be behind on guns. So that's one of those things you have to kind of count for in how you go. So we'll go Austria-Hungary because I really enjoy running it. And this is going to be Kabusha Web for web series. Fleet size, I would recommend small or medium. Large or very large, this gets to be a huge number of ships to keep track of. We'll go a medium fleet this time though. Just a few more ships, a little more interesting. I really enjoy historical resources because it is so challenging. You're trying to build a fleet that can last and be competitive, and you don't have that free reign to just build whatever you want all the time. Can be fun to build whatever you want all the time. Kind of my thing. And I like to build the legacy fleet because it's going to be very important for us as a smaller nation with a limited budget to have some decent ships at the start. We're going to leave these other 2 options alone. And we'll use game 5. Alright, so jumping straight in. We have to build an existing fleet. So we're going to hit the OK button. Kind of, the interface in this game is serviceable. There's a lot of it's kind of obscure or not well explained. I'll do my best as I go through. So we'll hit our build a ship button, and we see we have nothing in here yet. We actually have to design our ships as we go. So we're going to hit the design a ship and bring that on over. First you choose your ship type, battleship, all the way down to the lowly minesweeper or the XX Can't remember what that one's for. I've actually never used it. AMCs are your armored marine carrier or merchant or whatever. They're basically your sneaky stealth raiders and such, but never used them too much either. But we start out with Bs, which are pre-dreadnoughts. So you progress from pre-dreadnoughts to battleships or actual dreadnoughts and battle cruisers. But you have to research some technology first before you can build these two. So you start out with pre-dreadnoughts. So these are your ship of the line, the best ships in the fleet. And for this first class name, what are we going to go with? We'll go with, I don't know. If you want to make it a little bit easy on yourself, hit auto design ship first. That you get a ship that's already got the graphics pre-done. Sometimes I really like to do my own. For this series, I'll probably use some auto just to make it a little bit easier. The name, I do like Ferdinand. So we'll go ahead and drop that off. And to make it easy for myself to keep these organized, I put their class and a period in front of the name. Because when you go to build the ships, it doesn't necessarily tell you. You can figure out which one's which, but especially if you have cruisers and light cruisers, you go, which one was this? It's just the name, and if you're using a lot of names, it's easy to get kind of forgetful because you will be turning over ships. You can build your ships locally or at a remote yard. So if we wanted to get a really big starting ship with, for example, 12-inch guns, we could build that overseas and start out with a larger dreadnought. That's an option. On the other hand, we have a very small budget, and that'd be putting all of our eggs in one basket. So we'll go 13-inch. We'll see as soon as we go to our 13K local yard, our caliber gun is still 12, but it says quality 5. Quality 5 means we don't have it. Actual qualities range from -1 to a +1 in the case of a very good gun. So we see, looking at our guns, got a lot of zeros. We have very good 3-inchers, but that's a destroyer caliber gun. We won't be using it on any of our big capital ships. A lot of average, nothing spectacular, but nothing bad. 7-inchers aren't very good. 8-inchers are good. Our 9-inchers are good. 10 is good, and our 11s are poor. So you kind of have a choice. You can look at this 11-inch. You can hit gun data and see what type of quality, what your performance you're going to get. So an 11-inch gun at maximum performance is under 5,000 yards. We're going to penetrate 5.8 inches of armor. With a 10-inch gun, we'd have 4.8. So even though our 11-inch gun is of poor quality, it is still superior to our 10-inch at this era. That can change as ammo quality improves and the gun quality goes up. You may find a smaller gun that actually outperforms a larger gun. But for this run, the 11-inch, even though it's poor, is clearly superior. So there we go. So we'll have 11-inch guns. Displacement. I hit that auto button and it built a monster bigger than our yard. So we're going to break it down. I'm actually going to probably target about a 10,000 ton vehicle or ship to make it a little bit cheaper to produce. In general, I actually kind of like to start out with what I want to build. I'm just going to zero these things out and think about what I want to build. I kind of piece it from the bottom up, you could say, and fill stuff in around. At this tech level, you can't have everything. So don't bother. Instead, focus on whatever your strengths are going to be. And I'm just going to zero these out to make sure we have tonnage. And I'm going to delete a couple mounts. I almost always keep torpedoes on these boats just to act as a defensive mechanism. But yeah, it's still important. Okay, so we've got 5,000 tons to work with. Speed. 18 to 19 is pretty typical of this era. I want to build a fast boat. The reason being, our guns are always going to be behind everybody else's. So I want a ship that's going to be just a little bit faster to outrun whatever I'm chasing. And if you look, as I change this, you're going to see that there's a big jump. So it went from 18 to 19, cost us about 300 tons. And that was a smaller jump, 250-ish, so not too bad. But if we jump again, about another 200. So we could even get a 21 knot early battleship fairly cheap. Then it gets expensive, 390. Yeah, it's a big jump. Anyway, we'll probably sit around 20 knots. That way, if we choose to run, we can. It might take us a little bit, but we have the option. We're going to have 11-inch guns, forward and stern. That's totally adequate, with a little bit more ammunition. 195 rounds just isn't enough for me. 140 feels about right. There's a very low rate of fire this era. We could probably even get away with 130, 135. It'd be totally adequate. We have to have a range finder, and I always go with the triple fire control system. These positions can be knocked out, which will severely degrade the quality of your guns. Secondary guns. From the manual, basically 6 inches and below are superior for targeting small craft like destroyers, while 7 inches and above have a penalty applied. So it depends what we're tailoring this towards. I am interested in trying to punish heavy cruisers and other battleships. So I'll probably favor a few extra big guns in order to get a little more offensive firepower. And we will go for 3 guns per side. Update. So our ship gets a little bit bigger again. Cool. I'm going to turn off that line. That's not supposed to do that. Oh, that's the wrong button. There we go. Tertiary guns. We'll come back to that. Basically, you have up to 3 sets of guns on a ship. Your primaries, your secondaries, your tertiaries. The tertiaries do have a negative because they have no firing control system whatsoever. These guys would at least have local fire control. Well, these would have nothing, so they're very poor. But we might throw a few of those on as well. Yep, so we check it. It's currently illegal still because we haven't finished building it. Belt armor. The big question is, what are our guns dealing with? So if we go there, our 11-inch guns can penetrate 6 inches of armor. So we want more armor at this era than we can penetrate. So, and I want this to last a little while. So I know I need a minimum of 6. I'm probably going to go for an 8 belt. The deck, next. Look at gun data. Our decks, at this era, the ranges are so short, deck armor almost doesn't even matter. So it depends on what I want to protect from. I'd probably go a minimum of 1.5, probably 2 inches, just so that at least to probably about 1910, 1908, we have a fairly respectable deck armor to protect us from plunging fire. Okay, belt extended. This is the areas that the belt protects the critical stuff. Your smokestacks, your ammunition, your engine room machinery, all that stuff's protected by the belt. The extended is the protection for the rest of the ship. So especially at this era, what do you want to protect from? Well, I would like to be impervious from all 6-inch guns. That way, any light cruisers that comes trotting by, they're going to do nothing to my ship's belt. They can hammer away at my superstructure, the stuff above water, but I don't want them to have any penetrations below water. So for a 6-inch gun of this era, I would need 3 inches of extended armor. So belt extended is going to go up to 3 inches. So weight remaining 450. Yeah, we're using up that weight, so we'll probably be changing some stuff. Maybe even lower the speed a little bit. It's all compromises. Deck, I generally want it to at least be as heavily, deck extended. It's basically 0 or 1 inch minimum. By the time plunging fire is an issue, we'll probably be starting to design ships without any deck armor. But for this era, have a little bit. You just don't have the all or nothing armor scheme yet, so it's to your benefit to have something. Conning tower, I always put it at least as thick as my belt. Normally a little bit extra. Okay, and we see we're starting to eat up our tonnage. We may lower these guns down, going from 6 guns per side to 4. So now we've got 2 if we update our ship graphics. It might even just disappeared, but 2 guns, 1, yep, right there. 2 on either side, just a little bit extra offensive firepower. You've got a little bit extra tonnage. We'll have to consider. Having just main guns and some 6 inchers is really good. Anyway, back to our main guns. Accidentally screwed that up. So 10-inch guns, we're actually over tonnage. So what we will have to think about this design. I'll probably shave off some speed, 19 knots, because we're not done yet. We may go ahead and drop these guns down. We see as we lower that tonnage, we gain, or that size of caliber, we get a lot of tonnage back. So we might go ahead and go with just 6-inch secondaries, 3 per side, as a compromise. That would give us great penetration against light cruisers and destroyers, but do very minimal against anything else. Turrets are important. Turrets are very vulnerable to explosions, so I generally want at least half an inch more than my belt. Boy, we're getting way too heavy. Turret top, equivalent to my deck, sometimes heavier, will go 2 inches. Later on, I like to go at least half an inch thicker, but right now it's not happening. And I'd like my secondaries to be impervious from 3-inch fire. Okay, so we're looking at this and going, we are still over budget. It's just too heavy. So what can we cut to make this worthwhile? Well, I know 8 inches is more than we need, because for our guns we only needed, for 10-inch guns, only 5 inches. For 11-inch guns, we only needed 6. So we can lower this down to, we'll say, a 7-inch belt. That got us a couple hundred. I like keeping these because they're fairly light and they're good close range detection or protection or finishing weapons. I feel like I am missing something. Medium range. Yes. We could start tinkering with our priorities. These are defensive ships. These ships are not going to be used for blockades. At least long range ones. We can switch it to short range. Huge increase in the weight. We could even switch our freeboard to low, which is how low it rides in the water. If you go to low, you get a lot of tonnage, but you will have poor performance in any kind of heavy seas. So we'll probably leave that at normal and see where else we can cut. Turrets, we could lower that down. 7.5. Okay, getting someplace. Conning tower, maybe down to 8. Okay. Again, I'm trying to build to this 10,000 displacement. I'm trying to make a relatively cheap early ship is the idea. Only got 3 guns per side there. We got that. Is there anything else I'm really missing without having to substantially cut? We could bring our secondaries down. One feature is in refits, as you improve technology, you can always add armor to your turrets or downgrade turrets. You cannot change your belt through conning tower once the ship is built. That is locked in stone. So you've kind of got to get what you need. We could reduce the belt extended. We'd lose the 6-inch imperviousness though, which is quite nice, and I will probably retain that. Turrets could go down to 7 inches. We're getting close. Secondaries. We don't have many of them, so it's unlikely they're going to get railed on too hard. So what would 2 inches of protection get us? Go down to 2. Let's see. So 5-inch guns could probably get through. So at 2 inches, we'd basically be protected from all destroyer level armament. So that's probably what we're going to have to deal with. If we built a bigger ship, we could get that extra, which we might want to now. How much would it be? So if we go 3-inch turrets. Oh, sorry, that's the turret top. We don't need that much. Back down to 3-inch secondaries. We could get that with a 10-1100. So we might go ahead and consider building a 10,500 ship and building back up just a little bit. This is the trade-off. You start going, what do I really want? What do I need? Turrets, that's adequate. Yeah, I'm totally protected but from other guns. My turrets will not be getting penetrated. My belt will not be getting penetrated. My belt extended will not be getting penetrated. Plunging fire is not really a concern for this era, and by the time it is, I will probably be retiring the ship. Update ship graphics, we're looking okay. Ugly little ship. We're sitting on some spare tonnage. I could add another secondary, which gets to 4 guns per side. And we have a little bit of tonnage left over. About 50 is probably where I like it normally, because then you have some room for fire controls and upgrades and such, but this is probably what we're going to go with. Our Battleship Ferdinand, first of her class. Check it. It's giving us a warning that's short range. That's fine. Nothing else flagged. Perfect. Save it. Yes. Cool. So that's our first ship. And as part of our existing fleet, we have 100,000 to work with, and this would cost us 35,000 to build another one. That's not bad. Often I see people build $50,000 battle, pre-dreadnoughts. I can almost get 2 for that same price. And I've got decent guns, decent speed. It does have fantastic secondaries? No. But it's going to be good enough. And I'll have a lot of support ships to escort her. So we'll build one as part of our starting allotment. Alright, so that's one ship built, and we still got 66,000. If we try to continue, yeah, sure, we're done building. Everything above 12 million would be gone. So we gotta burn through some money. Continue anyway? No. Next ship I'm gonna build is very important for me. Destroyers. You have, as part of your fleet engagements, once you go to war, it's not shown here, but you have coastal protection. I know from experience Hungary has to have at least 15 ships protecting its coasts. And to cover that, destroyers are one of the cheapest options. The cheapest option is minesweepers, which I'll build a few of as well. Auto build. At 200 displacement. I don't really care about the name. MS. I always like to call him Carlos. I don't know why. Just do. And you have a little bit of tonnage left over, so you can do a little bit of free upgrade, and you can get a little bit more speed for free. You can go up to 18, sure. You can even get, I think, a 1-inch belt. Yes, you can, and that's basically all you can get for free on these guys. You might even be able to get a tiny bit of conning tower. Yes, 7-inch conning tower is about where you top out. Okay, cool. Save. Minesweeper. Yep, and we'll build like 5 of these. These are the cheapest ships you can possibly build. The problem is they wear out in 10 years. And if you don't notice it, they will get sold off during turns. They don't give you that chance really to rebuild them. You'll have like a couple turns where it's marked as O for old. If you don't rebuild it then and there, it gets sold off. Then you got to rebuild the entire ship again. You don't have that issue with destroyers. That said, you do need some minesweepers because mines do become an issue the later in the game you get. So, go ahead and build a few minesweepers. They cost almost nothing. Dirt cheap to build. Wait, this is a good battleship. 166. Normally you're sitting at over 200k for maintenance. That's real good. It's another ship. Destroyers. Pretty basic. But my preferred ship build. What did it build here? 500. I was going to say, there's some weird tonnage here. I like to clear the mounts. I add. Let me see here. Normally I think it's Q, centerline, and C and D. Ooh, close. Delete. Delete. D and E. Actually, we will go different ones. We'll go F and G. Yeah, that looks about right for positioning. Cool. I don't know why it's doing that. We don't want any secondaries. I want only turrets. Got good quality 4-inchers, and we will go D&E. Single turrets. So I got some side-by-side guns up there. Why are you doing that? There we go. It's annoying me. So D&E forward turrets, we can see on there. And then we have a centerline launcher and a port and starboard. So you can get 2 torpedoes out on either side. Destroyers cannot have any armor whatsoever. Short range is totally fine for this initial class. The destroyer Panther is just fine for a name. 500 tons is as big as we can build them. I like building them at that tonnage. It works out quite well. And for speed, yeah, we can't quite get to 28 knots yet. 27 is going to be just fine. Short range cramped, we might be able to drop that. Ooh, so close. Ah, there we go. And I'd like to have just a little bit of wiggle room. They're not going to be using their guns very much at this era, so it's fine. It's fine. The biggest thing is I like having the 3 launchers because this ship will be sticking around probably the entire game. Initially it's your main destroyer, but later on it gets used exclusively for coastal duty, and as you upgrade these launchers, they just get deadlier and deadlier because torpedo technology is free upgrades for your ships. You don't have to replace everything. So it ends up some really potent coastal defense that sinks some ships. So it's saying we're low main guns. That's fine. I don't expect its guns to do a lot at this era. And short range, again, fine. She's a coastal ship. Alright, and we're going to build a bunch of these. Put like 10 of them. That's going to cost us 17 million. That's the per ship cost. That is the overall cost. Cool. So right here I already have enough ships to cover my coast. It's a pretty good start. Next 2 ships are going to be a heavy cruiser and a light cruiser. So we're going to go a CL. And we're going to, yeah, that's fine. We'll just let it do its thing. Caliber. I love 6-inch guns on light cruisers. We don't actually have a great 5-inch. Sometimes you start with a superior 5-inch, which you kind of have to scratch your head at and think on, but 6-inches are great guns. They're effective against other light cruisers. They're effective against destroyers. They're just great guns. So if we go gun data, here's my trick. I like to build them so we are impervious to this other 6-inch guns. So my belt, no matter what, is going to be 3 inches minimum. My turrets are going to be 3 inches minimum. Deck, I don't frankly care about. If you can penetrate my deck, my ship is probably dead at this era. Belt extended will do the same thing. Deck extended. Okay, conning tower. I do like heavier conning towers. I'll probably go like a 6-inch just to avoid. If your conning tower is taken out, well, then your commander is probably dead and the ship will start doing weird stuff. Turret tops, go 1.5 inch, just keep them from cooking off. This thing was going to be covered in guns, and 0 on secondaries is totally fine. So with what we've got, we are short 300 tons. We're going to increase the weight up a little bit. Excuse me a moment. And we're back. So it's going to be literally covered in guns. The way I like to build it is start out with a 4 and aft single turrets. Makes sense. You're then going to add, you can't use 1 and 2 in conjunction with that forward. They're either or. Either you have 1 up front or 2 side by side. It looks a little odd to me with 2 side by side. It's more optimal, but yeah. Next 2 we're going to use our D&E. And then at the rear, again, you see there's that 3 and 4 we can't use because we're using the aft guns because it's a little bit cheaper. We use S&T. There we go. I like the balanced look. And then lastly, 2 midships. This is my minimum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this gets us a 5-gun broadside with some nice 6-inch guns, and we'd be impervious to other 6-inch guns of the era. We get central rangefinder. And I like to increase the ammunition. About 160, 65 is pretty good at the start of this era. So you see we're short 2,500. Also, I like to add a heavy broadside of torpedoes. It won't use them often. Destroyers will use their torpedoes all the time. Cruisers tend to be more reserved about their torpedo use. That said, I like to have them because they're a very good deterrent versus the AI. Our speed is very high, way too high. Most light cruisers this era are probably 21 to 22 knots. I like to have 23 knots, that way I can chase them or run away. So we see we're getting closer, we're down to 1100. Range is medium, totally fine. Engine priority normal, totally fine. This is going to be my general purpose cruiser. It's not my long range cruiser, we're going to have one of those, but this is general purpose. At this era, we have to use the protected cruiser armor scheme. And we see it's got a curve here. The idea is that below the flat deck, the actual deck armor is placed below the deck in this curve. So part of that deck armor actually counts as some of the side armor. So that's where your deck armor actually needs to come up just a little bit, because the upper portion of it is actually, of your belt armor, is actually deck armor. So we might even increase it up to 2. Not too expensive. We'll have to watch that. What would 3 get us for deck? Kind of expensive. We'll see. We'll see what tonnage we end up if I'm happy with that. No secondaries. Our 6-inch guns are good and universal enough to serve that role, and no tertiary guns. You could add, for example, even more turrets. FGJK. Totally cover it with guns, but we have a huge jump in weight. And so we're not going to do that. We're going to delete these turrets out. It's not a bad ship. I've run with it, but it's very expensive for a smaller nation. That's normally how I'd build a German light cruiser, but for Hungary, you just have such a more limited budget. I try to get by. And we're going to increase this in tonnage. Normally I could build this ship at about 5,500 to 6K. So at about 6, it's getting kind of expensive at 26 per. 24, I like being under 25. So we're going to roll this deck on down 2 inches. Probably 1.5 inch deck. So we're down 400. We might go ahead and delete 2 mounts. Save some tonnage. We're not burning a lot of tonnage on ammunition, so we're fine there. What else can we cut? This is getting pretty close. So now we might inch back up. What about 22 knots? 22 knots, it would work just fine. So we can bring it back down. I like having a 23 knot, but that might just be an engine upgrade a little bit later. And 22 is just fine. 23 is one of those nice, but not critical. Fire control back up to 3 positions. And this is looking pretty good. We could add those other torpedo launchers back in, but again, I like having some room because occasionally a ship can end up overweight as part of production, slower, faster. You don't quite know. There's a certain amount of randomness. Britain especially gets hit with those all the time. So, yeah. Okay. And this is going to be named CL. I'm going to call this the Huntress class. She's our fantastic little ship of the line, great little brawler, pretty much counter any other light cruiser we come across, and some heavies. Save. Okay. Build dialogue. Yes, and will we build one? Probably. Maybe even 2. Probably just 1 to start. Okay. Sure. And our last ship, we won't be building her here, but we will be afterward, is our heavy cruiser. CA. This is my Archer class. And it varies a little bit from game to game. This will probably be our most expensive ship in the fleet. It's going to be a long range. Basically, it's a long range raiding cruiser. Guns are going to be very large. We have very good 8-inch and 9-inch and 10-inch guns. I've had some real good success using 9-inchers because you really have to get good bang for your buck as Hungary. 9-inchers allow you to actually be competitive with the early dreadnoughts. So while you are unlikely to be able to take it on 1-to-1, in a 2-to-1 scenario, you have enough penetration to really wreck them, especially if you're as part of a flotilla. So we'll go 2 9-inch guns. Probably bring down the ammo a little bit initially. Central range finder up to 3. Add 2 torpedoes. Again, these basically defensive purposes because cruisers don't use their torpedoes very aggressively, especially this era. They have very short range. And we're probably going to be alright with a 5 or 5.5 inch belt. So we'll go for a 5-inch initially. Sounds good. Plunging fire really is a non-issue at this era, so 1.5 inch deck is fine. Deck extended 3 inches would be nice to protect us from any 6-inch guns. Our turrets need armor, and that's where we will probably go pretty heavy on these 6 inches, which would protect us from early 11-inch guns. Might be a little bit much. How about other heavy cruisers? You're earning 8-inchers. 4.5. Okay. We'll leave it there. We'll see where we end up. And secondaries. This ship will have secondaries. We're going to have a small complement of 6-inch guns. 8 per side. Not a huge number of secondary guns. The more secondaries you have, the greater chance of getting penetrated. Lastly, forward and aft in double turrets. Alright, so we need 2,000 tons to make this ship work. I'm not surprised. It's always a very expensive ship to build. Should be bigger than our actual battleships. I'm not surprised one bit. That's pretty normal. That's a little tight. 43, 44. Somewhere in there. A little bit more ammunition. Okay. Triple firing control. 5-inch main belt. Boat extended. Thought I said 3 inches there. So we'd be building almost to the max if we want totally impervious to 6-inch guns. I don't think it's gonna matter, so we'll cut that back down, 1.5 inches, let's say. It'd be nice, but it's not a must-have. 12. Okay. All right. Very expensive, but I expected as much. Big benefit here is she's going to outgun pretty much any other heavy cruiser she comes across unless they're armed with 10-inch guns. She's going to outgun them. She has very good starting armor, well-protected turrets, well-protected belt. The extended belt's kind of weak. It's backwards. Deck extended. Should be like the 1-inch deck extended. Actual deck 2. There you go. That's more. That looks more like it. And get those backwards every once in a while. And a little bit more in the conning tower. Here we go. I like it. So we're impervious to all 6-inch and below fire of this era. We are impervious to most 8-inch until better rounds and guns are developed. And we'll be punishing with 9-inch guns and have a adequate 4 guns per side for our secondaries. It's nice having up 6 guns per side, but again, we're trying to build these relatively cheap. Although these are basically our ships of the line. These are basically the most expensive ships we'll be building. So actually, if I went ahead and went whole hog, it's only going to cost me a couple more and get me 6 guns per side. I like that. And there we go. I want to fix this ship real quick. You can draw your own little deals. Turn that off. And you just kind of trace it on out, whatever you want to build. And you right click to complete it. And we're going to delete that one. That one, and that one. So then I can come in here. For example, do it like this. You can only draw on the left side. And I like pretending they've got these massive range finders. There you go. And then just a little little stern section. I like to use a line to do the initial connection, so it's about the same width. Down, box it, and then just a little dealio like this, and just like this. There you go. Got my little basic conning tower dealio bob. Yeah, it's fun. Check it. All is okay. Still got that spare weight. We could go ahead, upgrade to 14 per side. No. Oh, I made a mistake. I forgot secondary armor. So we'll drop it back down. 10 per side. Perfect. That works for me. Biggest ship of the fleet, bigger than our actual battleships, but she has a very good purpose. She's our heavy raider. She will support the main line. And we cannot even afford to build her right now because she's more expensive than our battleships. To be expected. Okay. We're only going to build a couple of them, though, as raiders. So, we're now sitting here. We need to burn up 12 million more. So, we're going to go back to build a ship. And we will probably build... Let's see. It's too much to build just one. Well, no. It'll fit. It'll be a little bit tight, but that's fine. Fast burn. That's fine. There you go. Under 12 million. Got battleship. All the flotilla we need, and destroyers are surprisingly powerful. And, cool. Couple light cruisers. Continue. So we build our initial fleet. Whatever money remains can then be put into ships that you're building for half costs. So that's where if you can min-max this to get right at that 12 million, you really then maximize it for the ships you're building, because they're going to be built with half the ton of time already gone by. So we build at least one heavy cruiser. Yeah, sure. And that ate up most of our money. Get that first heavy cruiser costing us 1.9 per month. Our funds are gone. That's it. But it should be ready in 12 months, which would be quite nice. So we'll have a okay starting force. And continue. Yep. And we're in the game. The big thing to remember right off the bat, crank that up to 10. That's how much money you're putting each month into your research. Next is prioritizing. I used to prioritize guns very heavily. I have found it's more important getting better ships in general. So ship design should be put at high. This lets you get to the more advanced turret layouts. Same thing with turret technology. Put that to high. That way you get to those triple turrets, quad turrets, improvements on them, better elevations. All those are very important. And the last thing for me, I've tried teching this at high to try to get the light cruiser torpedoes, but they come so late that you really don't get to use them. I found it's not really worth it, so we'll leave it at medium, just normal progression. But we will want to get aggressive with our torpedoes. We might go and bump this one to high and really tech our torpedoes and our destroyer forces really fast, because that's basically free upgrades. Right now the torpedoes suck, but in 5 years they'll be adequate. In 10 years they actually get very potent. The last thing we need is machinery. Since we start out with oil, if we go too high, that means you cannot use it until you have the boilers that can actually burn oil. So get this high. By around 1908 to 1910, you'll be able to start burning oil. Nations that don't have oil, they have to wait till about 1920 to be able to start using oil. So that's some huge weight savings if you can do it early. And save. And there we go. So Hungary has its first fleet and is chilling out in the Mediterranean. And we see nations with access to oil. Hungary, Britain, Russia, USA. Boom, boom, boom. So we're kind of lucky in that we're the one small nation that gets access to oil early on. It's a huge advantage. It's huge. So, cool. Well, with that, I will stop there because we've basically gone through the setup, gone through the introduction, and next video we'll actually do some gameplay and hopefully get into a war. So, thank you and take care.